Hi everybody, I'm Flamewood and I'm back with a behind the scenes video of how I created this super cute red panda cake. So this is Mei Lee and she's the main character from Pixar's new movie called Turning Red. So Mei Lee is actually a 13-year-old girl who turns into a super cute fluffy red panda when she gets really worked up. So I'm actually channeling Mei Lee a little bit here today. I got her a signature green hair clip, a red top, and then glasses, but these are just my safety goggles that I wear when I'm doing some woodwork. Anyway, I'm super excited to share her with you, so let's get to it.
I started by printing out pictures of the red panda to use as a template and also to map out the internal structure. So her skeleton is going to have a board, 2 dowels for legs, and another board to hold up her head, held up by another dowel. I measured everything out, and here's my cut list. I'm going to use my brad nailer to assemble everything. Brads are like little nails essentially. You can use screws, but I'm too lazy to drill pilot holes. So I attached the leg dowels onto the bottom board, then I need to attach the legs to the baseboard itself. I also covered my board first with grease-proof cardstock. Always decorate your cake board, friends. It makes everything look pulled together. I think most people cover their boards after they're done decorating the cake, but since I don't want to have to figure out how to cut around her feet later or have seams in the cardstock, I'm doing it now. I just lay parchment paper or plastic over the cardstock to keep it from getting dirty as I'm working. At this point, I realize I can't nail the rod in because my brad nailer can't fit between the leg area. Sometimes I'm just figuring this all out as I'm going along because every cake is a new adventure. I like challenges and we'll figure it out. So Spade Bit is coming to the rescue here. I used this to drill a hole halfway through the board, so we're keeping some of the lip around the wood, which is going to help stabilize the dowel, and we're just going to hot glue the dowel right in there. And here's our finished structure, and I'm going to cover it with food safe foil like a science fair project. The bottom half of our red panda is going to be made with Rice Krispie treats. To get the Rice Krispie treats to stick, you spread some melted marshmallow onto the structure first. With Rice Krispie treats, I just eyeball it because I never know how much I'm going to need, and if there's extra, it'll get eaten. If I don't have enough, it takes 5 minutes to make more. I just melt some marshmallows in the microwave at 30-second intervals and mix in as much Rice Krispies as I think I need. Then cover your hands in shortening or butter or oil, then attach the Rice Krispies on. I formed her bottom first and used a template to make sure she had enough volume in her booty. Then once I was happy with it, I started smashing her legs on. And once I was done with that, I wrapped everything in plastic to help it hold its shape as it hardens. Now for her torso. Her torso was cake. I had 2 layers cut into half circles so I can fit it around that center dowel. These were 6-inch rounds I'm using here, and I attached the cake layers to the structure using buttercream. Using the templates, I start carving away at her shape. Once you have the general shape, just round out the edges. The arms will be added later on, so in this part we're only creating her torso. I'm happy with my shape now, so I'm going to give it a crumb coat to lock in the crumbs. Smooth it out with my flexible scraper, which works really well for curved shapes. You don't have to worry about getting things perfectly smooth because we're going to do another coat of buttercream and she's going to have textured fur anyway. Now for her head, we're also using cake. 6 inches here again. Once the cakes are stacked and filled with buttercream, I'm using the template again to start carving the shape of her head. Just keep cutting away at it and rounding it out. I'm going to be adding her snout on later with fondant, so I don't need to leave too much extra cake on for that. I'm happy with the shape now, so I'll cover everything with buttercream, and we'll stick her in the fridge to firm up. Once she's firm, I added the final layer of buttercream and smoothed it out more carefully. I also added extra buttercream to give her more of a belly, and I made some indentations for where her eyes would go. For her arms, I crumbled up pieces of cake and mixed it with buttercream. This is essentially what cake pops are made of. I used this to form the shape of her arms, stuck it on, then put the cake back in the fridge again. Our red panda is going to be covered entirely with orange fondant. I'll be covering the front part of her body first. Misting the cake with water will help the fondant stick to it. Once the fondant is on, I cut off the excess and wrapped the fondant around her legs, and then I defined the shape of her arms and paws with the Dresden tool. So I'm working pretty quickly to add the fur details. And this is partly why I'm doing the fondant one section at a time. First of all, it's easier, but it's also so that the fondant won't dry out, causing it to tear while I'm adding the little hairlines for the fur. Then we do the same thing for her back and just try to blend the fondant seams together the best you can. The fur texture is really going to help hide that seam. I also added some fondant on the bottom to form her feet, and then also added texture onto them to help it blend in again. Then working quickly again, add all the fur details. This part took a really long time. Finally, we get to the head. I'm covering the whole thing with just one piece of fondant, and then do the same thing. Smooth it down, cut off the excess, and blend the seams. For the fur details here, I kept looking at the reference picture just to see what direction the hairs were going in and how long they should be. For her snout, I made the shape out of a piece of white fondant, and then once that shape was done, I added a little triangle of brown fondant for the nose. And then using the Dresden tool again, I added some nostrils. Then just stick that whole thing on with some piping gel. Her eyeballs were balls of white fondant, and her pupils were little balls of black fondant. She also had this black thicker line around the outside of her eyes. That's just a thin roll of black fondant. To make her ears, I took thick pieces of orange fondant and made ear shapes. I gave it fur using the Dresden tool, then stuck those on her head with some piping gel. I've also stuck toothpicks underneath them to help them stay up till they're dried. And I just now realized that those toothpicks are still in her head. And her eyebrows are just little tadpole shapes made of fondant. For her white patches, I'm also using white fondant and giving it the fur texture. To get the right shape, you see that I've cut out just the white part of her face template to use as a guide. I'm thinning out the edges here and making it somewhat jagged, so it's going to look like it's blending into the orange fur once I put it on her face. And the same idea with the whites on her ears. I cut a piece of fondant into the approximate shape I wanted and then gave it that fur treatment. Then just stick it on with piping gel. Our big bushy tail is actually just Rice Krispie treats that I made into this shape. I wrapped it with a relatively thick layer of orange fondant. It's thicker here because her tail is bushy, and I wanted to make sure that I have enough depth in the fondant to be able to give it that fluffy texture. So this is a trick I discovered when I was making Christmas trees, and then I also use this for fondant shag carpeting. Just take a pair of scissors and start cutting away at the fondant, and then just fluff it up. It's excellent for fur. Then I'm also using the Dresden tool here to blend things together and add more hairlines. Once that's done, I attach the tail with some piping gel and have toothpicks in there for support. She's looking really cute. Her butt and tail might be my favorite parts. Now the last part is to give her more dimension using edible coloring dust. This part is going to make her look more realistic, make her just pop more, and better color match her to the actual character. So I mixed together some orange, red, and brown powder together with some alcohol to make a thin paint. Once it's painted on and that alcohol evaporates, it's going to leave behind that matte powder color. Right now it's looking a little bit scary since it's shiny and red, and to be honest, at this point I thought I may have ruined the entire thing. I just added color based on the pictures, so I went darker where the heavier shadows would be, like near her belly and the crevices around her legs. Of course I sound all calm now, but while I was doing this, I was dying a little bit inside because it all looks really heavy-handed and shiny and kind of bloody actually, but what else could I do at this point? So I decided to take a break and walk away. She went into the fridge and I gave the alcohol a chance to dry so I could have a more accurate look of what it was actually going to look like. And I'm really glad I did that. Once the shine went away, I was really relieved. I gave her some touch-ups and reduced the shine even more with some powder, then added some more shadows where it was needed. This was like doing makeup for her big movie premiere. And finally, her whiskers. I thought using dry rice noodles would be perfect for her whiskers. It also cracked me up because she's Asian and these rice noodles are so Asian. Anyway, you can get these at the grocery store. And we are done with our red panda cake. I had some dark moments there, but I pulled through and I'm super proud of it. She's really cute and I especially love her tail. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to see more fun cakes like this one and share this video with your friends also. I would also love to hear about what you thought about this cake or the movie Turning Red. I absolutely love the red panda and would love to give her a squeeze. And Mei Lee's friends were such a great little girl crew and support system for her. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, happy caking!